Officer of 50 Cassiad of I.S.U.P.K. Atlanta, under commanding General Yahanna, started out of 125th Street, Harlem, New York. And tonight's class is the biblical law class. The topic for tonight is crimes of humanity committed against the children of Israel. Once again, the topic is crimes of humanity committed against the children of Israel. Before I get started, I'd like to say I'm sorry for the tardiness. We had a lot of technical difficulties. That being said, as I like to do each week, is give you the itinerary for the week. Monday is our history class. Tuesday is our brotherhood class. Wednesday, which is tonight, is our biblical law class. Thursday is our mandatory scripture breakdown class. Friday is our Lashawan Kodash class, which is our original language being taught in Hebrew, being taught in Assyrian and Paleo. Saturday is our High Holy Day, which is the Sabbath. Before we get started, are there any questions in the classroom or any questions on the phone? All right, once again, the topic for tonight is crimes against humanity committed against or to the children of Israel. And what I want us to do tonight is understand that these crimes that have been committed against all of Israel, but not just with Israel. I want to point out, since tomorrow is Thanksgiving or Thanksgiving Day, I want to point out that a lot of these crimes that you're going to hear me discuss, we can think about our native Indian brothers, the tribe of Gad, the Seminole Indians. Think about what happened to them in the time that they were here, the 77 million lives that were taken, the genocide that happened to our native Indian brothers and sisters. I want you to think about those things as we go through this and understand that although we've had a lot of talk here lately about Ahmaud Arbery, Kyle Rittenhouse, and talking about guilty and not guilty, how our oppressor kills us or slays us and holds himself not guilty, which is Zechariah 11:5. We have honed in on that a lot this week, especially at camp. But in tonight's class, Israel, you are going to be the judge, the jury, and the executioner tonight. So for civil charges, I'm going to say, that are going to be brought against our oppressor, also known as the devil that the Bible speaks of. Tonight is going to be about us judging this matter and coming up with our conclusion, our judgment based upon the facts that I give you. Unlike this justice system that we have here in America, the joke of this justice system, we're going to look at the facts according to the truth, the facts according to the scriptures. And I'm going to compare and contrast and show you where there has been a conspiracy against the children of Israel, and it's war crimes. It's something that has been done since we've been here, but also before we even got here. And they have never been charged with anything. Understand, the statute of murder doesn't run out. Like, there can be a statute of limitation on rape or a statute of limitation on certain crimes. But when it comes to murdering someone or genocide, there's no statute of limitation on that. If you understand, if you look at what happened in the Holocaust with the fake Jews, to this day they're still arresting and or pursuing people who were in that military at that time. They may be 80 or 90 years old, and they're still arresting them to this day for that. So it lets you know that the crime of murder has no statute of limitations on it. So if that's the case, what I want you to understand and think about is, if there's no statute of limitation on the murder of the fake Jews, or with murder period, why is it that our oppressors from the time of slavery on up, because if you look at it, we're not that far removed from anything, why is it that they are not being pursued and put in jail or charged with a crime for the things that they've done? You can understand that the law that has been set up here in America has nothing to do with the law, statutes, and commandments that have been given to Israel. So when I talk about the crimes against humanity, That's an actual term. And with that being said, is there anyone on the phone who has any questions or any comments right now? All right, well, I'm going to go on. And what I want you to understand is that being that tonight is the eve of, I guess, our oppressor's pagan holiday of Thanksgiving, as we go through this and I break down to you, I guess you can say, these scriptures and the different avenues we're going to go down of what crimes against humanity are, like I said, keep in mind the Native Indians. I want you to be able to participate in class. That means YouTube says. So I want you all to be able to participate in this, and I want you to think, because we are going to be that jury. It's not going to be a jury of 11 whites and 1 black. Tonight, the jury is all of Israel. It's exclusive to us. We will be the ones who are putting out the truth, because the scripture says that the world will mourn when the unrighteous are in rulership, but when the righteous are in rulership, the world will rejoice. Well, we know that the righteous are us. We know that the righteous are those who follow the law, statutes, and commandments. We know that the unrighteous are the wicked. And the scripture tells us that the land has been handed into the hand of the wicked. And that wicked are those who, to this day, bring forth the laws, to this day decide guilt or innocent. And most of the time it points to the children of Israel when it comes to guilt, even when they're innocent. So I'm going to go through a lot of different things. There's a lot of things to unpack tonight within this class. We may not have all the time that we need to get through it, and if I have to do a part 2 of it, then so be it. But what go ahead, Ot.
What tribe that High Priest Samuel SHALAM was from?
You know what, I'm going to have to write that down and get back to you on that, because that is a good question. What tribe of High Priest Samuel was from? Hold on just a second, let me write that down now. And as a matter of fact, I have an officer in here who may know now. Officer Ricard, do you know what tribe, you said Samuel, correct, Doc? I'm sorry, Al, you said Samuel? What tribe? High Priest Samuel, what tribe was he from, sir, do you know?
I don't know what the hell off the top. I have to look it up.
Okay, well, we'll have to look that up, and if we find it before the end of class, we'll definitely get to you. If not, we'll definitely get back to you before this week is over with.
Okay.
Okay. With that being said, are there any other questions? Trooper Marshall, I will be calling on you to read here shortly, but until then, there's a lot of things that I need to break down so that you can understand what it is and how intricate your oppressor has been in the things that he has done. When we talk about these crimes against humanity, you're going to understand that they coincide with everything that's been done to Israel since we've been here and all throughout all of our captivities. And for any of you who've watched my classes, you know that I like to compare and contrast a lot of the things that the oppressor says. What you'll find out about people is that they like to talk or put things together, and they come up with their books and their psychology. And what they'll do is they'll put out there for you to see how they function and who they are. And once they do that, they're actually telling you who they are. They're revealing the devil that's in them. Because when I go back and I did a class on what it is to be a psychopath. And once you look at all the traits of what it is to be a psychopath, you also see that they line up with the scriptures of what it is to be your oppressor. We can't make these things up. And I'm going to touch on some of these things because in order to do these crimes against humanity that was done to the children of Israel, you have to have a psychopath mindset. And that would be all of your oppressors. All of them are crazy, every one of them. There's not one that is of sound mind. They just try to contain it. but when you put them in particular moments, you'll then see them react the way you expect them to act, the devil that they are. So with that, I'm going to go over a couple things, and like I said, there's several counts that are going to be pressed against your oppressor. Keep in mind that tonight is going to be like a court session. Just like how Ahmaud Arbery, he was on trial, although he was murdered, and Kyle Rittenhouse was on trial, although he got off, or at least that's what he thinks, or for the time being. So that being said, I want us to look at what it is, or what crimes against humanity are. So what I'm going to share with you is the definition of that. And it says crimes against humanity refer to specific crimes committed in the context of a large-scale attack targeting civilians, and it says here, regardless of nationality. But tonight, we're talking about crimes against the nation of Israel. So it's saying here, in the context of a large-scale attack targeting civilians. These civilians that I'm talking about would be the children of Israel. In the large-scale attack, we can look at that in many ways. We can look at that as systemic racism, or we can look at that as genocide. Now, understanding once we break down each bullet point of crimes against humanity, you're going to see and hear the things that have been done. So these crimes include all counts, including all counts that are punishable to death. And these are laws that, like I said, your oppressor made up. So you have to ask yourself why. Why to this day he hasn't been charged with anything. So we're going to look at what it says here for crimes against humanity. The first one is murder. But keep in mind we're doing that against the children of Israel. The second count is extermination / genocide. The third count is enslavement, deportation, or forcible transfer. Now understand now, murder, extermination and or genocide, enslavement, deportation, or forcible transfer. I'm sure that these things are coming to mind when you think about what has been done to us. Number 4, imprisonment. Number 5, torture. Number 6, sexual violence. Number 7, I'm adding these myself here, slandering of the children of Israel. Count 8, in the identity theft of the children of Israel. So, and then count 9, the enforced disappearance of the children of Israel, which that will be considered kidnapping. Now these last 3, of course, are things that I added to the things that we're going to charge our oppressor with. But the first 7 basically is out of their own book. It's basically out of their own laws and what they've created. So understanding that these crimes committed against us are being done by an entire nation of people. An entire nation of people are, I guess you could say, involved in the downfall or trying to overthrow Israel. And so that you have an understanding that the crimes against humanity is something that's not, it's on a global level. It isn't something that's just here in America or happening over in Africa or some third world country. This is something that has happened all over the world because we are scattered across the 4 corners, as you all know. So in order to enforce this crime that's being committed, you would need to, or I guess you could say to stop the crime that's being committed, you would need to create, I guess you could say something like a world police or a conglomerate of something that would hold nations or people in power accountable for the things that they do. So what I want you to do is I want you to understand and think clearly about what I'm telling you so that you can see the conspiracy and understand what the scripture says about they have come together with one consent. They are confederate against us, basically making sure that the name of Israel is no more. You're going to understand what this conglomerate has done. And when I say a world police, this is something that has been set up so that the crimes against humanity aren't done, where you have warlords that are ruling over people, where you're having mass amounts of sex trafficking or just genocide of people. Keep that in mind. I'm going to give you the definition of a conglomerate. It says here a number of different things or parts that are put or grouped together to form a whole but remain distinct entities. Now, I don't expect anyone to be able to tell me this, but if we're keeping it within the frame of the class, what comes to mind when I say a conglomerate or someone who governs, or world police? What comes to mind when I say that? Anyone in the classroom or anyone on the phone? Go ahead, sis. Hold on one second.
Would it be like the priesthood or the Catholic Church?
I mean, that's a good answer, and they do have a lot of power, but not them. Go ahead, what you got?
Come on now, sir. It's really heavy about me. The first thing that comes to my mind is conglomerate. It's like a syndicate. You know, a group of evildoers, you know, like the opposite of the Justice League, and you confederate against us, you know what I mean? Like,
That would be close to. You guess you can't say that they're a syndicate, but what I'm looking for is the UN. That would be the United Nations. The United Nations is a conglomerate. They've come together, and what they do is they have separate entities that create a whole. And those separate entities would be the nations that are represented within the United Nations. Understand that again. That conglomerate in those separate entities that create a whole will be the United Nations. They are the ones who are in charge or put forth the law to keep, I guess you can say, crimes against humanity from being done. That's what the UN is responsible for. Now, when you look at the UN, you have to ask yourself, what representation does Israel have there? Now, Israel has representation, but that would be not Israel as blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians, but the land right now that's being occupied by those devils. They have that representation. As far as blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians, there's no representation there in the UN. So what the UN does is, you have a question, sis?
No.
Okay. What the UN does is they come together, and what they do is they get together and they create these laws. The laws are things that are subjugated to people who are in power, but it's those who are above the people who are in power. So I guess you can say you have like a person who's a puppet, because there's always people who are above them who can implement certain laws or overthrow the person who is in charge of that land, and so to speak, your president. Now, when you look at the UN, there's a lot of power there, but the power that they have is to make sure that, number one, they continue to have money, make money, and come up with ways to keep people in poverty. But also what their job is to come together to make sure that the children of Israel stay in the place that they are, that the children of Israel don't find out who they are, that the children of Israel continue to be destroyed, and they continue to keep our necks on us. That is what the UN's job is mainly for. So keep in mind of who they are. Once again, that's a conglomerate. So understanding, once we get into these scriptures, and once I start to break down to you the responsibility that the UN has to make sure that things don't happen or things don't come full scale when it comes to these crimes against humanity, you would have to ask yourself, if you look at what happened to the Native Indians, of course we didn't have the United Nations then, but if you look at what happened to us here in slavery, the United Nations wasn't established until 1945, and it didn't get its traction until 1948. Can anyone tell me what happened significantly, what happened in 1948? Well, in 1948, what happened basically was the land was stolen, the land of Israel that was stolen. And if you want to look at something on a large scale, the United Nations, go ahead, absolutely. So when you look at that and understand that the United Nations was already intact, they were already in place, they know that there was something that was happening on a large scale to a nation of people. They know that there was genocide committed. They know that there was crimes against humanity committed against the people, yet they still enforced and supported these fake Israelites moving into our land. So you would have to ask yourself, if the United Nations, this conglomerate of people, this world police, is in charge of making sure that these things don't happen, how is it possible that that was done unpunished? Well, you'd have to understand that there had to be a lot of murder that would have to happen in order for that to go forth. So the first count that we're going to go into is the count of murder. And I want you to give me Trooper Maisha, are you there? Okay, if you could give me Ezekiel 35, 5, 6, and 7. The book of Ezekiel, chapter 35, 5, 6, and 7. And like I said, the first count of crimes against humanity in their own law is murder. Read it when you got it.
Oh God, the book of Ezekiel, chapter 35 and verse 5. Because thou hast had a perpetual hatred and hast shed the blood of the children of Israel by the force of the sword in the time of their calamity, in the time that their iniquity had an end.
Go ahead.
Verse 6. Therefore, as I live, saith the Lord God, I will prepare thee unto blood, and blood shall pursue thee, since thou hast not hated blood, even blood shall pursue thee.
Did you read verse 7?
Oh God, verse 7. Thus I will make Mount Seir most desolate, and cut off from it him that passeth out and him that returneth.
Now understand, when we're going through these scriptures tonight, you're also going to hear some of the punishment that is going to come. So as I said, tonight you're going to be the judge and jury. You're going to decide guilt or innocence. And we're going to decide at the end of class what the punishment shall be. You're going to understand that that chief oppressor, of course, is Esau, and all the other oppressors around him. Of course, we know who they are as well, and they all make up, once again, the United Nations. Go ahead.
Yeah, about you know, checking in.
Yeah, about Shimmy, I'm sorry, that was going on. Were you Schwab?
Yeah, I want to.
Excellent. Got any questions? Go ahead.
I want to know if we use Ezekiel 25 and 12 or we said.
Bring it out.
Into the book of Ezekiel, chapter 25, verse 12. Thus saith the Lord God, because that Edom have dealt against the house of Judah by taking vengeance, and have greatly offended and revenged himself upon them.
And what are you saying? What are you saying there? I believe we can, but what are you saying? What are you saying the scripture is saying?
Pretty much about the top of the class, about how our president is pretty much doing it.
Right. You're correct.
Pretty much with the holidays, and even with these cases and stuff going on, even with them all Arbery and everything.
You're right. You're right.
The reason why he's doing what he's doing, even though he know he in that rulership right now, he's over it. He just, that reason. He won't let us meet our our neck, even though he know we're at our lowest point. Somebody.
No, you're correct. And yes, you can use that as a precept. The water for that. And as I said, we're going to keep in mind that we're talking about also our Native Indian brothers and sisters as well, because all these things coincide with each other. So I want you to think about tomorrow being Thanksgiving, but also that this has happened as a whole to the nation of Israel, these crimes against humanity. So what I want you to do is we're going to look at what tomorrow is, and it's going to coincide with the class. Tomorrow is not only Thanksgiving, But if any of you have paid attention, tomorrow is the National Day of Mourning for our Native Indian brothers and sisters. And what I'm going to do here, if I can find this article, is share with you, here we go, what our brothers and sisters have said. It says the National Day of Mourning is an annual demonstration held on the fourth Thursday in November, that will be tomorrow, that aims to educate the public about Native Americans in the United States, notably the Wampanoag and other tribes of eastern United States. They want to dispel the myths surrounding the Thanksgiving story and raise awareness. So what they want to do is they want to put the truth out there and let you know that it wasn't something where they just came together and they ate and held hands. No, they were slaughtered. That there were 77 million indigenous people destroyed. That's a genocide. 77 million. So where everyone tomorrow is going to be eating their turkey and chitlins and whatever else it is they eat, our people, Israel, will be, those who know who they are, will be in mourning. And you know, and I will be in mourning for my people as well, because this is something that happened to them, and there has been no, how can I put it? There's been no punishment as of yet for the things that have been done. Now, staying with the topic of the class, understanding that we're talking about crimes against humanity, murder is one of them. And I don't want to get ahead of myself, but extermination and genocide is also one of them. So, once again, once you read this, it says the first National Day of Mourning was held in 1970. So you're looking at 1970, you're looking at 50 years ago. So this isn't anything that's new to the people. Blacks know this, but because of their lust for wanting to eat turkey and chicken giblets and all that other shit, well, not the chicken shit, but you understand what I'm saying, it's a lot for the language. But at the end of the day, understanding that our people have a lust for eating. You know, they want to give their family, they want to eat anything to eat, no matter what it is. You can tell them, look, here's what happened to these people, these are your people, and what will they do? They will continue to go ahead and they'll feast. Not understanding that we have a feast day of our own. The Feast of Dedication, which will be, what is that, November 28th, which is this Sunday. We have our own feast day that's in the Bible, but yet you want to celebrate something that is clearly let you know that these oppressors, these devils, came over here and destroyed 77 million of our brothers and sisters. That's a genocide. That's a crime against humanity. Keep that in mind as I continue. A matter of fact, one of you on the phone, give me the definition for genocide, if you would, Baba Bashar. The definition for genocide. And you know what, in my inshallah, if you would, pull Deuteronomy 28 and 50. My inshallah, Deuteronomy 28 and 50, and someone give me the definition of genocide before we read that scripture. And read it when you have it. Go ahead.
Genocide is the deliberate killing of a large number of people from a particular nation or ethnic group with the aim of destroying that nation.
Now I want you to read that one more time. Read that one more time for what genocide is.
Genocide, a noun, the deliberate killing of a large number of people from a particular nation or ethnic group with the aim of destroying that nation or
So that right there is clear. We know who they're talking about. We understand the nation that they want to destroy. We know what that goal is. That's a genocide right there. And that's what happened to our Native Indian brothers. Now, you can also put that into perspective with the tribe of Judah here in America. But I don't want to get ahead of myself. We're going to get into that as well. But I want you to understand that this right here is considered a crime against humanity. These are laws that were made up by our oppressor that they themselves don't even follow. So, like I said, once again, we're going to decide at the end whether they are guilty or not and what the punishment will be for the things that they have done. Go ahead and read Deuteronomy 28 and 50 for me, Baba Kashab.
The book of Deuteronomy, chapter 28 and verse 50. A nation of fierce countenance, which shall not regard the person of the old, nor shew favor to the young.
Now, that nation of fierce countenance, right here where we are, they have not regarded the person of the old. They have not shown favor to the young. Up until this day, they haven't. To this very day, as I said last week with Tamir Rice, as I'm saying right now with Ahmaud Arbery, as I said last week with Katherine Johnston, who was 90 years old. Then you go all the way back to our Native Indian brothers and sisters. And you understand they had no regard for the young or the old, because the 77 million wasn't just the men, they were women. They were children, boys and girls, infants, babies. That's what they did. All of them, 77 million. So you have to look at yourself, you have to ask the question, what type of mindset would it be to be able to commit a crime so heinous against humans? And you would have to understand that that would be a person that was a psychopath. That would be your oppressor. Only your oppressor can go to a place, shake your hand, eat your food, and then have worn his heart, as the scripture says, and then cut you off. Try to destroy you one by one. Try to starve you out one by one. Cut your head off and kick it around like it's a soccer ball, which is what they did. Looking at how they treated our Native Indian brothers and sisters. That right there is a crime against humanity. This right here is a scripture that is bringing that they have no remorse for you. So we went into Ezekiel 35. We went into Deuteronomy 28. This is using the scriptures to back up what their own laws are supposed to be against. Now, as I continue, we're going to go in here. We're going to go into count number 2. And count number 2 will be extermination and or genocide. So you just read the definition of genocide. If you would, Azariah, pull up the definition for extermination, and Trooper Ma'asha, pull up Psalms 83 and 4, Baba Kashab. Because once again, we're going to compare and contrast what their law is and what they've done compared to what the scripture is. And this is the evidence that's being put forth towards them. So I want you to understand what we're doing today. We are being the judge and jury. And at the end, we will be the executioner. This is going to happen. Read that definition of extermination when you have it. That's the count 2 under the articles of crimes against humanity. You have that up? Trooper Azariah, you there? Salaki, you there? All right, and then I'll look it up for myself. And give you the definition of the word extermination. Go ahead.
Yeah, I stepped away from my phone. I'm going to get that definition for it.
Well, I'll go ahead and read it real quick. Extermination, killing, especially of a whole group of people or animals. Now, of course, we're not animals, but it says here, the killing of a whole group. Extermination, especially of a whole group of people. So that coincides with the word genocide. This right here is count number 2 on the articles of crimes against humanity. Trooper Maishala, do you have Psalms 83 and 4?
God, oh God, sir.
You can go ahead and read.
Psalms chapter 83 and verse 4. They have said, come, and let us cut them off from being a nation, that the name of Israel may be no more in remembrance.
Now we understand that there are many ways that they cut us off from being a nation, that the name of Israel may be no more in remembrance. Even when it's like it's a double-edged meaning here, if you will, when you look at how we celebrate the oppressor's holidays, that right there is cutting us off from being who we are, because we're becoming who the oppressor is. But then the other way that they cut us off is by exterminating us, by genocide, by mass murder of our people.
Right.
That right there is what they've done to us. So when you're looking at the extermination and the genocide of our people, that right there being a crime against humanity, the scripture right here tells you in Psalms 83 and 4 that they want to cut us off from being a people. But not only do they do that to cut us off from being a people, they have strategically planned and placed certain things in our neighborhoods. And when I say in our neighborhoods, meaning in the black and Hispanic neighborhood. Can anyone tell me what has been placed in our black and Hispanic neighborhoods that are used to exterminate and or create genocide? This is the easy one.
So,
Go ahead.
we got several churches,
Uh-huh.
liquor stores,
That would be correct.
gun shop, pawn shop.
That would be correct, but there's one main one that I'm looking for.
So
Go ahead, sis.
gentrification,
But what are we using? Not in gentrification in the sense of getting rid of the people, but what is a tool? Hold on one second. What is a tool that is being used, a weapon that is being used to exterminate our people that has been placed in our cities? I'll get back to you. Sorry, Ella, what do you have? Absolutely. Abortion. Planned Parenthood. That is something that is used to exterminate or for genocide when it comes to our people. So that's another way to cut us off from being a nation. Because what you're doing... Go ahead,
I want to see when you use Jeremiah 11 and 19 as a precept.
Jeremiah 11 and 19. You might be getting ahead of me. Go ahead. Go ahead and read that.
This is the book of Jeremiah, chapter 11, verse 19. But I was like a lamb or an ox that is brought to the slaughter, and I knew not that they had devised devices against me, saying, let us destroy the tree with the fruit thereof, and let us cut him off on the land of the living, that his name may be no more remembered.
Absolutely, you can use that. Absolutely, you can use that. Excellent precept. All right. Absolutely. Absolutely. So when you're looking at the genocide of our people, blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians, we can look at how they did the Native Indians by bringing disease to them, smallpox, starvation. You can look at how they have put Planned Parenthood in a lot of our major cities, in many of the different corners, and what they've done is they promoted it in a way to make you feel comfortable with doing it. You know, of course, these are things that we've gone over in class. These are things that you've heard before, but I need to reiterate this so that you can understand these are crimes against humanity that are being done in a subtle way, and the people who are supposed to be policing that aren't. So what they'll do is they'll package it up in a way to make it presentable to you by telling you, well, look, you're your own person, your body belongs to you, no one can tell you what to do with your body, you want to go to school, you have your life, so much life ahead of you. Meanwhile, you've killed, you've murdered 19 million to 20 million babies since 1973. Now, I'm not going to go deep into that because that angers me to no end when I think about how a lot of black sisters will say A lot of our sisters will say, and I say black sisters because I'm sure the Latino sisters do it as well, but not like what I've heard amongst Judah. They say that there's no protection from the black man. When you are a goddamn serial killer, 20 million babies, do you understand that you stunted the growth in here in this nation about 25%? About 25%. So the amount of Judite, if we're saying that they were with Israel, so to speak, even if they weren't with Israel, the fact that they went and did what they did, and most of the time it is with Israel. They don't do that when they go and have babies with the oppressor. They don't do that for some reason. But when it comes to us, they lead us to the slaughter. We have our throats cut, literally, by these oppressor doctors who tell you, go ahead and do this. This is the best for you. This is what you need to do. You can't afford to have another child. These are crimes against humanity because what they're doing is they're coercing you into doing something. Once you go and you read and study the crimes against humanity, it goes not only into just the physical things, but the psychological things that are being done, things that are being said. So you have to understand that this is a well-oiled machine that they have put in place to destroy Israel. None of it is by accident. None of it. So when we're looking at abortion, matter of fact, give me Deuteronomy 28 and 57. 28 and 57. About the shot.
Oh God, sir.
Read it when you got it.
The book of Deuteronomy, chapter 28 and verse 57. And toward her young, one that cometh out from between her feet, and toward her children, which she shall bear, for she shall eat them for want of all things, secretly in the siege and straitness wherewith thine enemy shall distress thee in thy gates.
Now, read that again and stop in want for all things. Read that again up to that point.
Comma God, book of Deuteronomy chapter 28 verse 57. And toward her young, one that cometh out from between her feet, and toward her children, which she shall bear, for she shall eat them for want of all things.
Now, this right here is a precept for abortion. And we have to understand that these things aren't by mistake. There is a psyche that our sisters have within their minds that once you tap into it, you're able to control and let them know, look, you have to do this. They'll listen to the oppressor. For those who aren't in the truth, they'll listen to the oppressor much quicker than they'll listen to any brother. And they'll tell them, you want this, you need this. In order for you to achieve and get to where you want to be, this is what you need to do. So you have these sisters out here right now that are of age who may have had multiple abortions, and they're of age and they have no children. Now you have some who do it by choice, and then you have some who've done it and they've come into the truth and they've repented of it. So Yahweh shot for that. But for those sisters that are out there in the world right now, understand that this is an extermination. Understand that this is genocide against our people. Understand that this is being used against you. Understand that you are at war also, right here with our brothers. That this is being done against you.
So
Go ahead, sis.
a lot of them also are now having hysterectomies very young. Like if they're like in their early 20s, they're starting to. That's like the thing with a lot of young girls. They're having hysterectomies before time.
Right. What the sister just said is so heavy, saying a lot of these sisters are having hysterectomies. And if I'm not mistaken, the hysterectomy is that when they're getting their tubes tied or having their ovaries removed?
Yeah.
Or when they have
never get pregnant.
Right, so they can never get pregnant. So now they can say, well, I didn't have an abortion. I had a hysterectomy. You have removed the ability to create life. What they've done is they're no longer a god now. according to Kemet, the Egyptians, she can't create life now. She's removed her ovaries. The gift that has been given to her to create life, or to hold life, to carry life. But like I said, this isn't against the sisters. This isn't about them. This is still about our oppressor and what he has done. So I don't want to get too carried away with that. As I continue, we're going to go into count 3. Count 3 is enslavement. Now, what I want you to do, Izariala, is get me the definition of enslavement. And Trooper Ma'ashala, I would like for you to give me Deuteronomy 28 and 68. We're going to read the definition of enslavement first, though. The definition of enslavement. And once again, understand that these are crimes under the articles of crimes against humanity. These are their laws. Read that definition when you have it, Azariah.
Enslavement. To make someone a slave.
To make someone a slave. Now, many people, especially Christians, they'll tell you, I'm not no slave. I ain't no slave. I'm free. But if you got that turkey leg in your mouth tomorrow, you're a slave. You got them chitlins in your mouth tomorrow, you're a slave. If you're not following these laws, statutes, and commandments, you are a slave. The only free people are those of us in the I.S.U.P.K. who are following these laws, statutes, and commandments that were handed down to us from the Most High. That right there is the reason why we are free. Now, we are still in the land of our captivity, but understand that we are free because we're following the laws, statutes, and commandments that were given to us. They can't take that from us. Now, if you would, Mashallah, read Deuteronomy 28 and 68, and understand we just gave the definition of enslavement. Read Deuteronomy 28 and 68.
The book of Deuteronomy, chapter 28 and verse 68. And the Lord shall bring thee into Egypt again with ships. By the way whereof I spake unto thee, thou shalt see it no more again. And there ye shall be sold unto your enemies for bondmen and bondwomen, and no man shall buy you.
Understanding that being sold to your enemies for bondmen and bondwomen, that is for slave men and slave women. When it says that no man will buy you, no one will buy you, that no one will save you, no one will redeem you from this. You will be a slave. You're going to be sent to a land not your own. Will you be taken captive? So understanding that is enslavement is to be a slave. That right there is under the articles of crimes against humanity. Understand that we're talking about crimes against humanity against the children of Israel. We just broke that down out of the scriptures. So understand that every single law that they have put forth that goes against those articles, they have done to the children of Israel, be it 1,000 years ago or today. They're continuing to do them, and there has been no charges filed against them until now. Until the men in the I.S.U.P.K, until the priests and prophets of the I.S.U.P.K have come out here and start to teach you this truth and let you know that there will be redemption. There will be punishment for what has been done. There will be judgment for the things that have been done, so that you don't think that, like many brothers and sisters who are Christians think that they have been forsaken, that they have been forgotten about. That's a lot of people's issue within the black community that I speak with. A lot of them think that how can these things happen if there's a God? That's of course a Christian thought process. How can that happen to us? If there's a God, then and he's all power, how can bad things happen? Not understanding sin and not understanding who the Most High is. Not understanding that we are being punished for things that we've done. But also know that we are his chosen. Also know that he is going to come back and he's going to plead to the nations for us. Also know there will be punishment that comes. And at the end of this, we will get to that punishment. So that right there being count 3, enslavement, that right there is under the articles of crimes against humanity. Now we're going to go to count 4. Count 4 is imprisonment. Get me the definition, Izariala, of imprisonment. And what I want you to do, Trooper Ma'ashala, get me Isaiah 42 and 22. 42 and 22. When you get the definition to imprisonment, read that when you have it. Go ahead.
Now, the state of being imprisoned, captivity.
The state of being imprisoned, captivity. Now understand you have enslavement, where someone's being made a slave. Then you have imprisonment. the state of captivity or being imprisoned. Both of them actually are intertwined with each other, because right now there's that modern day slavery of putting our brothers and sisters in prison. That right there is also a form of slavery. So if you would, my Shala, read Isaiah 42 and 22, Baba Kashai.
The book of Isaiah, chapter 42 and verse 22. Spoiled. They are all, Salakia, they are all of them snared in holes, and they are hid in prison houses. They are for prey, and none delivered, for a spoil, and none saith restore.
That's very heavy for this imprisonment part of this. Them being hid in these prison houses. We understand what that means. And I don't know if you all, I'm sure that you do, you see the articles that come on social media or in the newspaper clippings where there's always someone who is being released from prison. It's always a Judite brother who's been released from prison after being in there for 30, 40 years for something that he didn't do. It seems as though I see that every week, and it burns me up. Because I'm going to tell you another place where I've seen it, and it'll probably show my age, which doesn't really matter. But I used to look at the Jet magazines that my dad would get, and in the back of these Jet magazines, there would always be a story of a black person, a black brother, who was released from prison for a crime that he didn't do. It's been years since I've read a Jet magazine. Years. But that's been being done ever since. And they'll come out and they'll be, amazingly enough, high-spirited. I guess they're so happy to be out to know that they're about to eat some regular food, probably going to get with a woman or what have you, knowing that they can breathe fresh air, so they're not coming out angry. But the point of the matter is they've been put in prison for things that they haven't done. They've been hid in prison houses. That's the imprisonment. Not only for those things, but even if they have committed a crime, given a sentence that is much greater than what the crime was they committed. So that's being put in prison. That's imprisonment, where they've been using us. For example, there's a show on Netflix, I believe it's called 13th. If you haven't seen it, you should check it out. There's a political background with it, with the Democratic and Republican things, but look at the facts of what they're talking about, of how they use these big corporations to fund the prisons, and in turn the prisons are doing this day labor for these corporations. So that right there is imprisonment. But we can also look at sex trafficking, but I don't want to get ahead of myself because that also intertwines with one of the other things they do with crimes against humanity. Get me Jeremiah 50 and 33, Baba Kashai. Jeremiah 50 and 33. Read it when you have it.
The book of Jeremiah, chapter 50 and verse 33. Thus says the Lord of hosts, the children of Israel and the children of Judah were oppressed together, and all that took them captives held them fast. They refused to let them go.
And they were in prison. That also intertwines with enslavement. So you know how your oppressor likes to say one count of this, one count of that, but it'll be of the same crime. We can look at this under enslavement and imprisonment, both being different charges, both adding different counts. That's what they do with us today. But these are the same things that they've been doing, the same things that they change the words up so that they can add more to your sentence, so that they can add more to the crime that you have done. They give you different counts and they just change the name of what it is. So understanding, this right here is also enslavement. So when you think about or enslavement or imprisonment, you can think about all of the captivities. You can think about the Assyrian captivity. You can think about the Babylonian captivity. These right here are all crimes against humanity. Now understanding that, of course, there wasn't what can I say? There wasn't a UN at that time. But understanding that to this day, these things are still being done. Give me Jeremiah 29 and 10, Baba Kashai.
Oh God. The book of Jeremiah, chapter 29 and verse you and causing you to return to this place.
Now, we're looking at the Babylonian captivity here. Understand, this is imprisonment. These are things that have happened to our people. This is being a slave. This is what has happened to us. All these things coincide with the laws of your oppressor. Now from that, we're going to go ahead and skip, go on down to count 5. Count 5 is torture. If you would, Bob Kashab, get me the definition of torture, Isariala. Read it when you have it.
Torture, the action or practice of inflicting severe or suffering on someone as a punishment or in order to force them to do or say something.
I mean, I'm sure that if you're listening right now in the classroom or anyone that is watching, once you hear the definition of each one of these crimes, once you hear what the definition is, you can pinpoint and give examples of when it has happened to our people. And that is the point of the class, so that the evidence that is being presented before you, you can clearly at the end of class choose yea or nay, guilty or innocent of these crimes against the children of Israel. Once again, all week we've been hearing about Ahmaud Arbery and whether or not they were going to be found guilty. You know, if I can sidebar for a second, they found the 3 men, the 3 devils, guilty of murder. And with that, I had to think long and hard about the way I would present that or talk about it, because I don't want to be callous towards the family or insensitive, it was a better word, towards the family. But once I saw the people come out of the courtroom, and you saw, what's the cat's name, the big head, small body, Al Sharpton. Once you saw Al Sharpton, once you saw the bald head lawyer who's getting his little fame, once you saw the legal team come out, and all the different, I guess, black people who are of renown, I guess, in their little circle, the political constituents, I guess you can say, when I saw that, I was disappointed and I was disgusted, because I knew that they were going to come out there and coon. And unfortunately, that's what they did. And Ahmaud Arbery's father also came out there and did that. Now, once again, I don't want to seem insensitive, but the first thing that came out of their mouth was, this isn't a black-white issue. I wouldn't want to see this happening to somebody white either. That's what came out of their mouth. That's the first thing that came out of his mouth. I wouldn't want to see this happening to a white child. Did you not hear what that cave bitch said about Ahmaud Arbery when she said that with his long skinny legs and his dirty toenails? I couldn't understand what that had to do with the fact that they shot him in cold blood. And then I think about it. Of course, they're defaming him. They're trying to make him the perpetrator instead of the victim. That's what your oppressor is good at doing. That's the crime that they commit, that they do at all times with everything. And it disgusted me to no end, because they want to get out there and say, we did this. They got out there and said, we did this together, black and white, we did it together. We made history. We had 11 white jurors and 1 black juror, and they all found him guilty. We made history. We did it together. We can come together. And I tell you what, it was just, I'm not even going to say amazing, but when I think about the ridiculousness of their statement, of how far we haven't come, it being 2021, and the oppressor is still beating the tar out of us, and yet he's still making you believe that we're in this together. Well, that right there, what's the word when someone kidnaps you and beats you to death and you start to grow a love for them? What's the word for that?
I can serve, I may.
Go ahead,
Stockholm syndrome.
Absolutely, it's Stockholm syndrome. That we have it worse than anyone. We have it worse than anyone. I just don't get it, and it pisses me off to no end. But I have to have patience. I have to have patience. There was a time when I didn't get it, so of course I have to have that patience and show them these scriptures and do classes like this to break down the scriptures to show you that your oppressor is not for you, that he is 100% against you. You have to be proved. He has to be proven through the scriptures here, so that you can see your oppressor is the devil that the Bible speaks of. Your oppressor is definitely a liar. Go ahead, Op.
It's such a heavy topic that you're on right now. You're speaking on everybody. How you said, the brother said that the first thing he said, it's not a black or white thing. He don't want to see that happen to a white kid either. You know, they go to show you that these Christians really don't want no relationship with the Most High. They don't want no relationship with Christ, because they don't realize what Christ got to go through when he come back to deliver Israel. Your oppressor's babies have to die.
Right.
The people that you want to say so much has to die.
That's right.
Lots and lots of them.
You are correct.
That's the only way. I mean, that's the only way. They're a plague. And, you know, it's just something they got to get rid of. You know, that Most High got to get rid of. You know, through the Spirit of Most High. They come.
That's right. A plague has to be eradicated. You're right. You are correct. They don't want that. They don't believe what the scriptures say. They stay within the confines of the book of Matthew and Luke, and not that there's anything wrong, let me make that clear, but they don't come out of the Old Testament, of the New Testament, and they don't understand the New Testament. They don't understand any of it. All they think of is love, peace, and hugs. That's all they're thinking of. And that's the reason why they don't know that they're at war. And that's the reason why there will be another Ahmaud Arbery. There'll be another brother, whether it be 2 weeks from now. Matter of fact, hold on. It won't be 2 weeks from now. I'll put it past the holidays. I'll say after the first of the year, we'll have another one. After the first of the year, there'll be another one of us whose life is taken. Because, of course, right now, they don't want to ruin their holiday season. And going back to what I was saying before I get too far off, when I said I want to sidebar, understand this. They found these men, these devils, not guilty, not because of the crime that they committed, but they want to keep everything in the black. And understanding when I say in the black, meaning the term talking about monetarily. If they were to find those men not guilty right now, this isn't the same thing as Kyle Rittenhouse. They knew that if they were to find those men not guilty who killed Ahmaud Arbery, that this country would have been set on fire. They would have burnt it up. And you know how much money they would have been lost? Over this 3-day holiday of Thanksgiving, that would have been destroyed with people running the streets looting, and them having to send out the National Guard, sending out SWAT, sending out police. That would have cost trillions of dollars for them to do. So they want to stay in the black and not in the red. Now, let's just say that they would have went to court and this would have been in January, like mid-January. You don't have anything for a few more months. They would have found them not guilty. Because, hey, we can afford now. We've made it through our season. We've come into our quarter where we've hit Thanksgiving, we've hit Christmas, we've hit New Year's. So all of our money has come together right there in that spot. We've had our biggest shopping days, so we're good right now. Now let these niggas go out here and act a fool. We're good right now. They timed that. It's timed, and this isn't a conspiracy. Look at how things move. Go back and look at these court cases. Go back and look at when they find them not guilty and understand they know what it is that they're doing. They were not going to let these niggas get out here and tear up Atlanta, because this happened in Georgia. They weren't going to let them get out there and tear up Atlanta over Thanksgiving. They were not going to let that go down. So, of course, and here's how you can prove that. With Kyle Rittenhouse, if you were paying attention, the they made sure that they called the National Guard out. The National Guard was there a week before the verdict. They said, we have them in place in case anything goes down. They called nobody. I mean, you could hear a squirrel fart in Brunswick. There was nothing, no noise, period. They didn't say, well, look, we're going to call these people out here to make sure that nothing goes down, because they knew what they were going to do. Regardless of having that jury, they knew, oh, these cats are going to be guilty. We're going to lock them up. We can get rid of these rednecks. But understand this, they also had 11 white jurors. If it were 12 black jurors and 1 white juror, you think they would have put the lives of those 3 men, those 3 white men, in the lives of the hands of 11 black jurors? Absolutely not. So there's things that are being done, that are being put in place so that you can see, hey, here's how we move. You know, we got you, but we're definitely not going to let no niggas get you. So understand, they definitely weren't going to ruin their money. They weren't going to ruin their pagan holiday season. Now, back to this, for this crimes against humanity. I believe you read the definition of torture. If you would, my Charlotte, give me Jeremiah 52, verse 10. The book of Jeremiah, chapter 52, verse 10. I'm going to read a couple things here, and I want you can all give examples of what torture is and what has been done, but read Jeremiah 52 and 10. Read it when you have it.
The book of Jeremiah, chapter 52, and verse 10. And the king of Babylon slew the sons of Tabitha before his eyes. He slew also all the princes of Judah in Relah.
Go ahead.
You read?
Come on.
Then he put out the eyes of Tabitha, and the king of Babylon bound him in chains.
Now stop right there.
He carried him to Babylon.
Right there,
and put him in prison to the day of his death.
Well, I mean, that right there covered several of these that we've already discussed, but torture, they took the brother's eyes out. Took his eyes out. That's torture right there. They took his eyes out. Your oppressor, I tell you, the things that your oppressor thinks of to do when it comes to torture, I've always been, I'm not going to say amazed with it, but just taken back when I look and think about what they come up with, their torture tactics, because we can't think that way. We don't move like they do. If you were to do a study, which this is what your oppressor does, he likes to write books and gives you the science on what things do and how they function. So they took the crucifixion, and understanding that the word excruciating comes from the word crucifixion, and it's talking about the excruciating pain that Yahushua had to have gone through. But understanding that the crucifixion was not only just done to Yahushua. So what I want you to understand is that when you go and you look at the breakdown or study the science behind what putting someone on the cross would do, the pain that comes from it and what it does over time, how could they even think of this barbaric act? Once you read it and you see what has been done, you understand just how horrific this act was that was placed upon Yahushua. So when you're thinking about torture, there is none like the oppressor. The things that your oppressor thinks of it's definitely beyond me. When I think about slavery, and I'm sure in class, those of you watching, those of you on the phone can imagine or think about or seen in these different slave movies the torture tactics that they've done by putting us in vats of acid or vats of oil. The things where they would take us and hang us up, and not only were they trying to humiliate us, but they would hang us up, set us on fire, cut off our genitals. All these things that they would do, they would do it while we were alive. So the thought process to do it and do it without remorse, your oppressor has the ability to do that. So when it comes to crimes against humanity, which is one of the crimes that is under the articles of crimes against humanity that are done to the nation of Israel, torture has definitely been done. So far we've gone through 5 counts. And at this point, I'll let you be the judge at the end of whether or not your oppressor has been guilty of all these things. And also knowing that since we understand that the United Nations is supposed to be the police of crimes against humanity, whether or not they have done their job, or whether or not they have colluded together to come against us so that these things could be done. There's a few more scriptures that I have here, but I'm going to, for the sake of time, I'm going to keep on moving. We're going to go into, let's go to, we're going to count 7. This is something that I wanted to add myself, because, you know, the oppressor likes to add certain things to his laws. And I'm going to give you one. Go ahead, Op.
You know, you kind of make me think about something a second ago. You know, about how they Christians think about the crimes of humanity against, you know, from our oppressors against our people. You know, it's just like they sit back and think like these crimes, like they kind of like a speeding ticket or something. Like it might fall off in about 2 or 3 years or something like that.
Right.
And like, you know, like the Most High is just gonna just forget about it. You know, these people gotta get their judgment. You know, and these Christians, you know, they're just blindsided about how these holidays and stuff like that make them feel around about that time. But you know, it's just a heavy point. It kind of make me think about, you know, how they don't think like, you know, what our oppressor did in the past, he's going to be, you know, charged for it.
Absolutely, absolutely, and that's one of the reasons why they continue to do what they do. But like I said earlier, when you're looking at the law, the statute of limitations doesn't run out on murder. If someone murdered someone 50 years ago and they find that person today, he's going to jail, especially if it's one of us. But also, like I said, the crime of genocide, what was done to the war crimes, which is also under the statutes of crimes against humanity, when you look at what was done to the fake Jews, to this day, if you go and look, they'll still arrest and put you in prison if you had anything to do with anything that happened to those fake Jews. To this day, they do that. But with us, absolutely not. We're told to forget about it. Keep it moving. But as you said, they will pay for their crimes, and I'm excited about it. I'm excited about it to the point to where sometimes I don't know what to do. You know.
Yes, sir, if I may.
Go ahead, Op.
Come on, Counselor, real heavy kind of comment, sir, if I may. It was brought out yesterday, last night's class, and Officer the correctional said that, you know, we don't go to these movie shows and just to be told that we are not the Father. Right? And I was thinking, if I may, you know, in the kingdom, we get our power. We have these fake Israelites, fake Jews go to Maury, our Maury, and we're going to tell them you are not the truth. You know what I mean? And take care of it that way. I mean, it's the blackness, sir.
Con, I mean, this is true, but I'm not going to be thinking about any of that. I'm going to be trying to bust that ass every chance I get. Every chance I get. I'm not going to give them the opportunity to even think like that. Now, I'm not going to be, no, I take that back, I am going to be extremely hard on them, because that's what they've done to us with no fail. But yeah, I get what you're saying. I get exactly what you're saying. So when I go to one of the next count number 7, this right here is something that has been done, and it has also caused us to be murdered. Give me slandering. What is slandering? The definition of slandering. Hey, Zariel, if you can look that up. And while you're looking up slandering, Trooper Maya Charlotte, give me Deuteronomy 28:37. Read when you have it. Go ahead.
To make false and damaging statements about someone.
Damaging statements about someone, to slander. You know, you're putting something on them that to hurt who they are. And once you think about that, Commanding General Yahanna brought out something several months ago in one of his classes about a demon, about what it is to have a stereotype put on you. And slander creates that stereotype. And what that also does is it puts in the mind of not just your oppressor, but of our people, that attaches a certain stigma to them. And what it does is, especially when you're dealing with the police, as soon as they see you, what do they want to do? They have a fear of you, so they see you and they want to hurt you. They're afraid. So here, we're going to take his life. We're going to pull the gun on him. Because look at him, he's a savage, he's an animal, he's a beast, he's going to do these things to me. So that slander has also been used to destroy our people. Like literally, it's a demon. And once they see you, that's what they see. Go ahead and read Deuteronomy 28:37.
The book of Deuteronomy, chapter 28, and verse 37. And thou shalt become an astonishment, a proverb, and a byword among all nations, whither the Lord shall lead thee.
Right, that's what we become. Understanding that they've made us that byword, and then we can look at, for example, going back to Ahmaud Arbery. They wanted to make him the criminal. They wanted to make him the perpetrator instead of the victim by defaming him, by making you look at him in a certain type of way, by slandering him. So they were putting Ahmaud Arbery on trial when these devils who were alive right there in front of you, they were trying to act as though it was self-defense. Here Ahmaud Arbery is dead, can't even defend himself. But they were slandering him. Give me Psalms 44 and 14. Bob Bashar, Psalms 44 and 14.
The book of Psalms, chapter 44, verse 14. Thou makest us a byword among the heathen, and shaking of the head among the people.
The shaking of the head amongst the people, you know, they look at you like, look at him, look at him. Go ahead, I don't want you have something.
Yeah, so like I wanted to know if this was a precept, Ecclesiasticus 26 and 5, to what you were saying.
Go ahead, sir.
Oh yeah, some serious like before.
Oh, Ecclesiasticus 26 and 5.
I was trying to ask you, is it
Okay.
a precept?
If you could give me the book of Ecclesiasticus in the Apocrypha, chapter 26, verse 5. The book of Ecclesiasticus in the Apocrypha, 26 and 5.
The book of Ecclesiasticus, chapter 26 and verse 5. There be three things that mine heart feareth, and for the fourth I was sore afraid, the slander of a city, the gathering together of an unruly multitude, and a false accusation. All these are worse than death.
Absolutely, I don't want. Absolutely, I believe you know that, sir. Absolutely. They have definitely slandered us. They've definitely slandered the city, for sure. And that is a crime that has been handed down from your oppressor. That is a crime against humanity, against an entire nation of people. Give me, we're going to go over one more. Give me, for count 8, identity theft. This right here, like I said, I want to add my own to this because it's been done to us as a whole, and this will be the last one. Give me the definition of identity theft. Isariala. And then if you would, Mashallah, give me Revelations 2 and 9, and also be ready for Revelations 3 and 9. Read it when you have it.
Identity theft. Now, the fraudulent acquisition and use of a person's private identifying information usually for financial gain.
Well, we can look at it in a financial sense. Of course, we can see the trillions of dollars that have been given to the fake Israelites, but definitely knowing that they have taken something from us or tried to take it from us by claiming to be us. So the crime against humanity of taking a nation of people's culture from them and giving it to someone else. That right there would be a crime against the nation of Israel. If you would, go ahead and read Revelations 2 and 9, my Shala.
The book of Revelation, chapter 2 and verse 9. I know thy works and tribulation and poverty, but thou art rich. And I know the blasphemy of them which say they are Jews and are not, but are the synagogue of Satan.
Now go ahead and give me Revelations 3 and 9.
The book of Revelation, chapter 3 and verse 9. Behold, I will make them the synagogue of Satan, which say they are Jews and are not, but do lie. Behold, I will make them to come and worship before thy feet, and to know that I have loved thee.
Right. Give me Job 9 and 24.
Job chapter 29 and verse 4.
Salaki, chapter 9 and 24. Job 9 and 24.
Salaki, the book of Job chapter 9 and verse 24. The earth is given into the hands of the wicked. He covered the faces of the judges thereof. If not, where? And who is he?
Now, understanding, we're talking about identity theft, so we know who's responsible for all these things. All these things are covered under your oppressor. He's committed all these crimes against you. Your oppressor also has the United Nations, who is supposed to be the police over something happening to an entire nation of people. So I want to know right now, someone on the phone, in the class, whomever, to let me know what the evidence that has been presented today within these scriptures, these crimes that have been committed against the children of Israel. Is your oppressor innocent or is your oppressor guilty? Well, I guess we gotta. Go ahead, sis. Go ahead, sis.
Guilty.
Absolutely.
With the punishment of death penalty.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Go ahead on the phone. Go ahead. Absolutely. Who else was on the phone?
Sister Akita.
Go ahead, sis.
Our oppressor is guilty of all charges.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And with that, we're going to go ahead, Yeah, we're going to throw away the key, all right. We're going to close it out with, give me Isaiah 14 and 21, last verse. Read it when you got it.
The book of Isaiah, chapter 14 and verse 21. Prepare slaughter for his children, for the iniquities of their fathers, that they do not rise nor possess the land, nor fill the face of the world with cities.
We'll be preparing your children for slaughter, talking to the oppressor. The crime that you have committed against the children of Israel is death, and you will receive it. With that, I'm going to end the class and hand it over to a powerful priest and prophet, Ricard Karab.
I.S.U.P.K security announcements. We are the I.S.U.P.K started out of 1 West 125th Street, Harlem, New York. Rule for new brother and sister. When a new brother or sister comes to the school, they are off limits for 6 months. They are to be saluted only. They are to share themselves with the world. If they need transportation, the teacher will arrange. After the 6 months, if a brother or sister has an interest in a particular person, she must get permission from the head to speak.